Hey, well, welcome to today's episode of Changing the Game. I'm with Ashley Horne today. Welcome. Glad to have you here. This is episode 3, where we're going to be talking about nurturing your relationships to convert more business. In the past, as you guys know, if you've tuned in, we've talked about how you can increase consideration and be specific with your market. And we'll continue every 2 weeks to take another topic through the remainder of the year. So if you haven't signed up for the rest of the events, be sure to do so that you can either join us live or get the replays after the fact. So before we get into our discussion today, hopefully you've also had a chance to take the assessment around your own business and where you are at in terms of nurturing relationships. So if you have joined us, feel free to put that in the chat. If you're watching this on Facebook, drop that in as well. We'd love to hear what stood out to you and what was the biggest opportunity that you identified for yourself. If you haven't done that, we'll make sure to get that resource back out to the group so everybody can utilize that and think about your own opportunities. So again, welcome, Ashley. As we get into our topic in 10, I want to kick it off by just giving you a chance to tell our audience a little bit about who you are, how you like to introduce yourself.
Perfect. So I am a financial advisor. I more view myself more as like an entrepreneur. And especially a thought leader in women empowerment. I usually like to say I'm an expert in money. That's kind of the main quick thing I like to just tell people is that I'm definitely an expert in money. And I'm a creator of an online digital course, Elevate Your Mindset, which obviously empowers women to manifest A+ clients, make more money, design the life and business that they truly desire. And when I'm not working and being a financial advisor and an expert in money, I'm usually just traveling around the world safely if I can. So
Sounds wonderful. So you've got all these different things going on. So I'm really interested in your take on how do you define marketing? What is it to you?
So I think marketing for me specifically is creating different funnels for people to work with you. I think it's creating different areas of opportunity for people to come into whatever you have created in your business. Like, especially being a financial advisor, is creating different funnels so clients can come to you in different areas instead of being the one kind of hunt kill mentality. Like, you only one client introduces you to another client, introduces you to another client. I really think of marketing as marketing yourself once so multiple people can see you, and then you create those funnels where people can come into your business and ultimately work with you in whatever capacity you want.
That's great. It sounds like you really talk about it's the and mentality versus the or of like, I have to do this, or I'm only going to do it one way. There's multiple things and how they can all work together. So
100.
around our topic today around nurturing relationships and how does that lead to converting more business? Tell me a little bit more about what that means to you.
Yeah. I think it means of how you're showing up as an advisor. So I think nurturing relationships, I think a lot of times women and advisors in the NM system, I think what happens is there's a lot of scarcity mentality around a lot of things when it comes to building clients and getting clients and those sort of things. And I believe nurturing relationships is how you show up in your meetings. Are you positive? Are you confident? What's the mindset that you have going into that meeting? What are your, I don't like to say expectations, but what are your asks from your clients when you're thinking about getting more business coming in, right? And I think that's what has to do with nurturing your relationships is caring about the person, knowing that they're going to be there for you, but then also saying, hey, in order for me to continue to sit here and do awesome work with you, my ask is that you're going to help me with continuing to build my business. It also saves on marketing if you're the one that's kind of helping me a little bit in that space. I think that's really what comes down. What I kind of defined as nurturing relationships is how are you showing up? How easy are you making it for clients to give you more business? And how do you feel as a financial advisor asking for those great introductions to clients?
So I'm sure this has been a journey for you as well. We talked a little bit about that before, about some of your learnings, and you've been like reflecting on that. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in this journey.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of limiting beliefs around clients that I had. I think that when I sat down and I thought about the business and I realized that I had a very scarcity mentality in my business, especially trying to get to the next level. If when I was writing, I don't know, $5,000 a month premium months or $2,500, like even going from 2,500 to 5,000 or 5,000 to 7,000 or 7 to 10,000. And then obviously now my focus is 100,000. But I think that those small incremental growths, it was very scary for me because I thought that if I didn't take on every single client, that my whole business was going to fall apart basically. That if I getting to the next level, doing the things that I needed to do to get to that point, I think that was kind of the challenge that I face is how do I get my mind wrapped around getting to the next level? And I think a big thing too is that what I realized in going through that process is it's who I become as an advisor every time that I make those little incremental moves. So the challenge that I faced was how do I get there, right? What's the path that I needed to get there? Okay. And it really boiled down to my mindset. Like I needed to ultimately believe that I was already that at that stage of being that advisor. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is how the challenge was is being afraid that if I kept saying to myself, I work with clients that make X amount of dollars, initially deep down, I had a fear that I couldn't service them in the right way. Like, why would someone who make $1 million a year listen to me when I'm not making $1 million a year yet? So I had to really reframe some of those limiting beliefs and those negative things I was telling myself to help push myself to the next level.
Yeah, that's really interesting from the framework of like nurturing relationships, how you're talking about of, you know, this hindrance of I'm not sure I can do that. So
Mhm.
maybe I'm not putting myself out there because I don't want to, say that I can support this type of client and I really don't feel like I can.
Yeah.
So I think that shift in the mindset is really important for us. Any really big surprises that you have learned going through this now? And as you think about how you're nurturing those relationships, that maybe those interactions with your clients that was different than you expected?
Yeah, I think when I practice showing up authentically myself and putting myself in that mindset of like, I'm nurturing my clients, I'm here for them, I'm doing all the work that I'm doing is of high service and I'm worthy of more clients coming into my business. I think once I really grasp that concept, that is really when I saw my practice grow and expand. When I knew that what I'm doing is and I think that's where a lot of people in our business get confused is that what we do is of high service. Like we change people's lives. We change the trajectory sometimes of people's lives, even from having one meeting with us, even from learning one new fact. It's a ripple effect of what we're changing. And when people understand that you're showing up to help them, that's your main focus, they're loyal to you and they're grateful to you and they're willing to introduce you to and become clients. And even if they don't become clients, I've had multiple times where clients don't become actual clients and they are my best referral source, even though they themselves are not clients yet. It's because I spent the time to nurture those. Like, instead of when I realized that this client wasn't the best client, instead of turning it off and just being like, oh, move on to the next, like kind of that people can feel that energy when it changes a little bit like, oh, you're not really ready for my practice. When I showed up and I was like, I am going to make sure that I'm nurturing this relationship and just showing up and giving little nuggets to this person who really does need me, it has done wonders, I think, for my practice. That was one of the things I think that surprised me the most is spending those extra couple minutes, how much a ripple effect that it had.
Yeah, it sounds like that, just focusing on adding value and being that servant mentality kind of that you talk about, how much of a difference that really meant for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it sounds like how your clients and prospects notice that in your interactions as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Why do
Definitely.
you think other people don't spend the time or, nurturing relationships? What do you think is the biggest barriers for them?
I think when you're a new advisor, you're just trying to survive. I think it's really difficult to stop for a second because we're scared that the second that we stop, business is going to fall through. And I think that we have that mentality. And if you're thinking that way, that's what's going to happen, right? Like manifestation is something I study and it's fun to play around with manifestation. And that was one of the biggest things that I recognized is that this business, especially when you're young in the business, you're a hunter, right? Like hunt, 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 hunt. And you don't spend the time to say, how do I get clients to come to me? because that notion seems like impossible. Like, how are clients going to come to me, especially when you're a new advisor, just trying to pay your bills? I mean, you're just trying to make it, you're just trying to get over that hump of like, I just got to stay in this business and get through the rejection and get through. I mean, it's tough, it's difficult, especially when in the beginning you fall on your face a lot more than you do when you're a little bit more of a veteran advisor. And I also think you build up resilience. And I think that's a big muscle that people don't spend a lot of time building on a little bit, is that resilience muscle.
So when you
So,
think about our audience and a lot of them being those newer advisors, or they're still trying to kind of get to that next milestone, and you've talked about some of the barriers that are in the way, what's a practical, try it at work tip, something that they could really do in the next week or 2 weeks to help them, be more effective in terms of how they're nurturing those relationships?
yeah. So I think that I always do, and I know this is like really hard to do when you're a first advisor. My dad used to tell me this all the time when I first started off, and I never listened to him. And now I was like, okay, I should have listened to him. Surprise, surprise. Is I think that I like doing approaches with clients. I like really kind of setting the expectation of what it's like to work with you and your team. So I think like maybe doing an approach call, it can be 5 to 10 minutes, especially if you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn, or especially if it's people, your family or friends that you're new in the business. I think it's in the first kind of 5 to 15 minutes, it's really practicing like, what's the expectation that you're bringing to a client? What are the nurturing things that you're going to bring to a client? Because for my business now, I know that I'm not going to get back to my clients within 48 hours. That's a big thing for me. I just can't get back to them in 5 minutes, right? But I had to set that expectation early, because there are clients that expect to hear back within a short period of time. Those clients are not made for my practice. And I know it's really difficult when you're a new advisor to start thinking that way, but especially if you're a new advisor that's like a mom already, or maybe a career changer, I think it's really like, what are the values that you're bringing to the meeting, and being actually like honest with yourself. If you're really not going to get back to a client in 24 hours, don't say you're going to get back to them in 24 hours, right? And I really do a good job with laying it all out, so when people come into the fact finder, they know exactly what they're going to get from my team and if they're a good fit. I
Yeah,
think
that
it's
really makes sense, because you always hear the things of like, under promise and over deliver,
yes.
or the piece around, in the absence of communication, what people speculate and they make their own decisions on that. So
Yeah.
if you're addressing that up front, you're really laying the foundation from there
Yeah.
on how this relationship is going to start to develop over time.
Yeah.
So we're going to shift now and open up if we have any questions to our participants. So if you're on the line, you can go into the Q&A and drop your question there, and we will take those. I'm going to see if we have any in there at the moment. While those might be coming in, a couple questions that we heard ahead of time that want to get us started. So the first one would be around, onboarding. When you think about client onboarding, tell us a little bit more about, like, at what point do you really think about that concept that starts, and when does it really end? When is it no longer client onboarding? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think client onboarding honestly is like from the first time that you meet the client. Like, I really believe that that's like when you're setting the expectations, when you're walking them through what like a client, like what does it look like to work with the team? What's the next couple of steps? I think that's really where client onboarding starts, honestly. I think where it ends is when they eventually become like to the close of underwriting, when you do that last delivery meeting, because then they're just a client after that point. And it's really just maintenance after that, meeting with them a certain time. Again, setting your expectations. How often do you want to meet with me? Because usually I meet with clients twice a year, but if you want to meet with me 4 times a year, we need to make that clear so you don't feel like I'm not reaching out enough to you. And I've had that with clients even lately, especially as you're building more clients, you're going to get that further in your career. But I think it's starting from the beginning. And I think that it ends when the policy delivery happens. And then it's just maintaining the client. And then I think it's onboarding always shifts, because I guess maybe I think more of onboarding is like that relationship that you're building with that client, those expectations that you're setting. What does your team structure look like? How much are you guys going to give each other a touch point? I think when in the beginning, because that process might start over again once you see that them for an annual review, then it's like, hey, remember, this person does this on my team. If you need this, if you need to get set up on the website, it kind of starts over just a little bit. Because believe me, it's like my dad always says, you sell in the fact finder, you sell in the close, and you sell again 6 months
Mm.
later. So to make sure that you're like confirm why you're putting in all the plans that you're doing. So, and that's why a big thing, I think the one thing I should share with a new advisor is always, always, always do deliveries. Always do not forget that meeting. It's so, so, so important. Review everything that you did in the close, make sure they're on board. If they have any questions, always, always, always is a big, big something that I would leave, because I used to not be, I was like, whatever, like they're already a client. And it's so important for client retention.
That's a great tip, great reminder for everyone. So we do have another question here. It's about, what are some examples about around additional ways that you nurture those relationships during that kind of initial onboarding process? What are some other things you did? You gave us an example about, the approach and setting those expectations. Tell us some more.
So I have a list of CPAs that I work with. So if they need so obviously my ask from them is to meet amazing people in their life. So I have CPAs that I love working with. So I always give referrals to CPAs. I think that also gives me like that one up that they can come to me for certain things. I'm very well educated in the world of other areas of like wealth building. So, like, I love real estate. I've done a lot of research on my own about real estate. So, I think it's really nice if you can throw little nuggets in there of like what you're doing in your personal net worth statement too. Like, I'm buying real estate, I invest in the market, I do whole life insurance, I do all that stuff. Um, and then also the last thing I would say is like with the referral side of things is like making sure they get their will and trust set up. So things that you don't get paid for, you're still reminding them that, because I have a 1-page sheet with all my recommendations, and on there I'm like, you need to get a will and trust put in place, especially if you own real estate. And then we also talk about medical directives. So I think nurturing that client relationship is showing up and being like, these are all the things that you need to cover to protect everything that we're putting in line together. I
That's
think.
great. So you talked a lot about things within the onboarding process and meetings that you have. And I know from our conversations that also extends into email communications, definitely into social is a big way that you're adding that value and nurturing that relationship. Do you want to hit on like at what point do you connect with people on social to kind of bring them in and start to nurture those relationships in that
Yeah.
setting?
So I use LinkedIn solely for NM. So LinkedIn is solely for my NM practice. And so I usually try to match with every single person on LinkedIn, because through Hearsay Social, I can post everything and anything that I want to get out there. And I'm always staying in front of my client's face. Like that's really, really important to me. And then the second thing is creating an email marketing strategy, which I'm sure is something you're very comfortable with helping people with too, is like just little nuggets to them of like, for instance, like Scott and I were doing one like a couple months ago that he created and I'm using as well, is like, how do you combine finances with your partner? And like just sending that, because you can create email marketing through the CRM system and send it to all your clients and just give them little nuggets, and the last piece that I'll give you is like when the market goes down or goes up and down, pair with someone in your office that does a good job with emailing people when things are going, and ask to share that, like share what they wrote and send that to your clients then. I think is a big thing, is that like if your clients know that you're on the ball with certain things, and it doesn't have to be investments, it could just be hey, during quarantine, here are 5 ways if you're working from home that I've learned that I wanted to share with you. It doesn't have to all be financial. It can also be some of your fun stuff. And I think be authentically yourself. That's the best thing about this business, is that you don't have to work with every single person. Work with people that you actually want to work with, that you get excited about. And I think that was the hardest thing from when I first started, is that I just felt like I had to work with every single person, and it was exhausting. So,
Great advice for everyone. So I think that's the amount of time we have today for questions. But if anybody did not get their questions answered or has questions after the fact, they can certainly post it into our Facebook group, and we'll be sure to get an answer back to them and connect you. So I want to thank you again for joining us,
yeah.
Ashley. And as one thank you, what I love to do is be able to donate to a cause that's close to your heart. So I'd love to hear about an organization that we can contribute to.
Oh, I'm a big animal person. So really like the Humane Society or any big like animal rescue shelters and things like that. I'm very passionate about um, making sure obviously animals are all taken care of. They have a home, they have, food, water, that sort of thing. So
Great. That's a wonderful cause, definitely to be able to support and everything. So I
yes.
want to hear from our audience. Make sure that you subscribe, that you join and follow our Facebook group at NM Marketing Playmakers, or reach out to me at Jennifer@playmakercoach.com. If there's other things that you want to hear from this group, questions, concerns, ideas that you have, be sure to tell your friends and colleagues about this. A couple things to expect. What's coming next is this Thursday, if you haven't registered, Empire Growth Partners has their call at noon, where I will be speaking on part 2 of developing your marketing playbook as you start to think about your year-end plan into 2021. I know Ashley has when is it, tomorrow or Wednesday that you'll be speaking this week as well?
Tomorrow on the Lives Leader. Yep.
Lives Leader. So you'll definitely want to hear more from her there. And then next week on on Wednesday, we have office hours at 1 o'clock and the Idea Slam on Thursday at 9 a.m. So if you haven't checked those out yet, I encourage you to jump in there with any questions you have or things you want to brainstorm and get ideas from others. And then we'll be back here on Tuesday, the 27th with Chantel to discuss enhancing your experience. So we won't forget about leveraging others. We definitely will come back to the or in your score of how you can help score. But next session will be enhancing the experience. So be sure to register and join us for that one. So remember Ashley's try it at work tip to do the approach, set the expectations there. And I also think the tip about making sure you don't forget about deliveries is a great reminder for everyone as well. So let us know if you do try it and how it goes for you. We'd love to hear from you on that as well. Thank you again, Ashley, for your time. And with that, we'll let everybody get back to the rest of their day, and we'll have the recording and everything sent out to everyone tomorrow. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.